Hey, welcome everybody. This is John Paul Mendoza, Dr. Speed Selling. This is Raging Verbalist number 220, hard to believe. And of course, if you are new, welcome. Glad that you're here. Hit that subscribe, hit that thumbs up. If you want to be annoyed, hit that notification. We're live on YouTube and the Facebook, but the Position to Win book group, talk about a variety of things, kind of veer away from politics, but something that's on my mind, and we'll talk about it. And joining me as always is the ever lovely Sandra. Welcome, Sandra.
Hello, how are you doing?
Doing good. Escaped Denver. For those of you who don't know what happened in Denver, as I was there and the crazy storm warning happened, and I got out at the last moment, and it has just been snowing like crazy. So friends and family are buried under snow, and I'm toughing it out, and well, in my sunny climb. So doing good. So all right,
Good.
Sandra, what are we talking about today?
All right, so it is the 4th anniversary of the book. So happy anniversary, I'll say. So it's hard to believe that it has been 4 years since Most Businesses Fail book was launched. So does it feel that long?
It's interesting to see how time just flies by. Clearly, with the whole pandemic and all of that went on, in some ways it feels like it's just brand new. And when I talk to people about it, they get excited. But for me now, it's kind of like a blur. You think about how it took me 30 years to really get it together and write it, and with the help, of course, my co-conspirator, co-author, and business partner, Gabe Batista, we put the book together. Tested it at Freedom Fest, fixed some things, and then launched it on clearly St. Patrick's Day, on the very worst time ever. I mean, I don't know how we could have picked a worse day. Bad from the standpoint that COVID was hitting, things were shutting down. Yeah, people didn't want to talk about fixing their business. They want to talk about, all of the crazy that went in with that. So it's hard to believe it has been 4 years. Also, it gave rise to the Raging Verbalist. So, I don't remember when our anniversary is, but we soldier on.
That's right. So did the launch turn out like you thought it would?
Well, I had launched for clients several books, and they were successful. So I had a pretty good idea what that was going to be. I said, I'm going to do all the things that they didn't do. I'm going to make it right. I'm going to make sure that it's all set up, and including, doing lots of promotional stuff. And all of that turned out to be for naught. I was on several podcasts talking about it. And, the events of the day just swamped over it. So it didn't quite go as I planned. However, I just kind of soldiered on, which is one of the things that I always talk about, is that you just can't stop. You just got to keep going. So it didn't turn out quite like I thought. However, the good news is that the reception was always very good and positive.
So what was the most off the wall interview you did for the book?
Well, I hired a PR person, and I had somebody who was working with us at the time, and we went and banging on, radio shows and podcasts and just, television, anybody who would take us. And we put together a media kit, and I'll toss props back to Sandra for, putting up with the annoyance of getting me to actually get all this stuff done. But she put together a beautiful media kit. And those who want the media kit, by the way, you can connect it through the Facebook page, and we'll get you a media kit, if you so desire. And I put together this cool media kit and really kind of, went over the top and just said all kinds of things. And so there's this big compendium of my many lives and many things that I've done. And this radio station in Alaska, of all places, picked it up, and they said, "Wow, this guy's going to be great." And and if you've never done an interview, if they're smart, they do like a pre-interview to make sure that you actually sound like you can talk and you can do some things. And they picked out one line from this entire, I think we were like 10 pages at the time. And there was this one line because a business partner of mine, now former business partner, was married on the, Bachelor, I think Bachelor in Paradise or Bachelorette, one of those shows. And I was in that show, and we put that in there. Why not? Have you ever done television? Yeah, I was in The Bachelor. So they took that one line and they did promotions that they're going to have somebody who was on The Bachelor. And of course, you're doing a pre-interview and they're bringing this up. Well, what was it like? Did you do this, do that? And I'm like, well, no, I essentially was an extra on the show. And that was one line out of many, many pages. Did you not read the rest of it, which they then went ahead and did? Now, the reality is that they'd already pumped this up, so they weren't going to like say, well, he slipped on the ice or something. Alaska, by the way. So they had me on, and I had to explain to them what it was like and tell them the experience of going to Puerto Vallarta and the wedding and all that. And it was really kind of a kooky, weird thing because we barely talked about the book because they did an, oh, by the way, there's this book. Yeah. So that was the weirdest interview. And I did a bunch of interviews, but that was like the weirdest, goofiest interview. And these two women were not pleased. And they said, that was, you shouldn't put that in there. And I said, I did it. It's just like, hey, I was there. I was on the set and I was in Mexico and, on and on and on. So yeah, that was the most off the wall interview. Talk about, a sense that people don't even figure out what's really going on. So that was it.
I'll drop a fact quickly. The media kit's like 30 pages and that was one sentence.
Yeah.
Goodness. Okay. So what were the positive?
And just to put emphasis on it, you're right. It's that long. And it's one line of like this compendium of lots of them. And what it and like there's no picture of me on the show. There's no here's the episode. It was none of that. It was just we dropped that in. So yeah, crazy.
All right. So what were the positives that happened because of the book, besides that one interview?
Exactly. The extra of the extra, of that. Yes. Yeah. So, and by the way, I was like the only person because they told me you need to dress nicely. I was the only person who was, because I had the suit that I wear when I go on stage. So I had a suit and a tie and all this, and I'm in Mexico. I mean, I ended up looking like the only guy who was there who was dressed like that. Everybody else was dressed. I'm like, you could have told me that, but it was fun. So I stand out on the show. If you ever can dig around and find that. So to me, the positives happen because the thing is that being able to walk around and tell people I have a book. I always knew how important it was. Always realized that there was a lot of credentialization that happens. The first thing is that when we put together the book and we were writing it out, her thing was, well, we're going to sell it to somebody, but don't write the book until you write you write the treatise in essence, the book proposal. Didn't follow that advice, put together my own book. It looks like a real book. And that was the whole thing because I had seen several people who had put together books and they looked like they were self-published. I mean, it was like, really? You did your own illustrations, didn't know that you were an abstract artist who had, done psychedelics at some point in time. So the book really worked out well, and the fact that people were interested in it. I still carry books with me everywhere I go. If you're a budding author, where did that come from? If you're a budding author and you really want to use something like this, you should always, which I do, always carry a copy of your book. I have worked with several people who have helped them sell a bunch of books, and I'm astonished how many times they'll say, well, just go on to Amazon or do something. You got a book, be proud of it. I mean, it's not like, something else. So yeah, lots of positives happen. Mostly it's the fact that it makes you stand out from the crowd and lets you actually talk to items in the book so you can actually refer to yourself almost in the third person because the book becomes that star, that object that people want to talk about. So that's what happened because of that. Now, for those of you who are out there and you're saying, geez, this is great, 4th anniversary. And yes, we're going to get you some practical things that the book will help you do, but but you have to have a copy of the book, right? So how do you get a copy of the book? Well, that's simple. What you can do is you can go to positiontowinbook.com, positiontowinbook.com, check it out there, get a physical copy. I will sign it for you if you say, John, 4th anniversary, say something cool and pithy. You can also get it from Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million if you want a physical copy of a book. By the way, this is mine. You can tell because it's got Post-it notes all over the place, which if you've never figured that out, you should always do that with books. Also, you can get it with, you can go out and you can get it on Amazon Kindle, Barnes & Noble Nook, Apple iBooks, and check that out. We also have a mug for the Raging Verbalist, just in case you want to be raging like me, get a Raging Verbalist mug. Everything tastes just a little bit like an edge when it's in there, and oh, are things so good. And then finally, because of when we launched this thing, it took 30 years to write the first book, and it took us a total of 17 days to write this book, which is Remote Work for a Better World. Still, I think a very applicable book if you work remotely. I can tell you every time I meet somebody who works remotely and they do not practice these things, they are in trouble. And here's why they're in trouble, because they don't know what to do. It isn't just getting a little corner of your house and then saying, oh, I'm going to go out there and have a place where I'm going to work and have my little laptop or something like that. No, we tell you not all. We tell you most of the things that you need to know so you're very, very productive. Sandra, what's next?
All right. So what's the one thing that people always comment about?
So what we learned because we came up with what I thought was the best title ever, right? So whenever you're writing titles, writing headlines, writing things like that, you should write down a bunch of them. I use 3x5 cards. You can use whatever works you want, lipstick on the wall, something, I don't care. And what I had done for years is I would write in, when I would give somebody the book, Positioning the Battle for Your Mind, I would always write, position yourself as a winner. So I came up with, and we actually still have a course that's available called Position to Win. And that was going to be the title of the book because it was based upon a lot of the materials that we had already developed. Now, that was really cool, but we needed a great subheadline because, see, if you say Position to Win, people go, oh, yeah, okay, yeah, that sounds interesting. But we came up with the subheadline, which was most businesses fail in the first 5 minutes. It just takes them 3 to 5 years to realize it. Now, and we had Position to Win was on top. So what really came out is that we changed the title, which, by the way, was a real pain in the ass and delayed launch of the book by several months because we had to fix it, right? And we didn't want to compete with the fat man that would be called Santa. So we said, okay, we're going to wait until March, and we're going to do it on St. Patrick's Day. And away we go. Now, the interesting thing that, what have I gotten the most comments about is that whenever somebody hears most businesses fail in the first 5 minutes, and the reason why we changed it is that as we walked around doing a market test, you should always do a test with real people. Because if you show it to your friends and family, they will usually not be critical. They'll be very nice to you. You don't want nice. Be nice to have nice. But what you want is actual real feedback. And even though the book said, the initial run said Position to Win on our test copies, everybody jumped to the subheadline and said most businesses fail in the first 5 minutes. And without question, without variation at all, everyone said, been there, done that, got it. That's exactly right. Most businesses fail. And so that's been the number one thing, is that people will ask me, how is it possible that people make a mistake in the first 5 minutes and they fail? And I'll give you a little insight, even if you haven't bought the book. Here's the insight. If you do not have a position or stake out a position or know what you are all about, that position has to be something that's very clear. And if you don't have that, what's going to take place is that nobody figures out who you really are. If they've got to do too much thinking, then you are out of luck. And that's where the mistake happens. In the first 5 minutes, you have to decide what your position is. Now, you may not know it, you may not have it, and it may take a while for you to actually develop it, but you have to be aware of it, and it has to haunt you until you come up with a position which is defendable, explainable, and in fact, impactful. If you can do those three things, you will become significantly more successful, and you will not be like the vast majority on the big ash heap of history where your business failed and went broke.
And what has the overall reaction been?
I've gotten a lot of very positive feedback. I've done some book signings, I've been at conferences, and what the part that people react to is that they have been through maybe 2 or 3 years and they're wondering, well, can it, stop me from going down the tubes? Maybe I made that mistake up front and I've had a slow start or something isn't working. And the answer is yes. So the overall reaction has been positive. The feedback comes back from people who've read it. They like it. It's fun. It's engaging. But more importantly, it's a very serious book because it talks about the most important thing, which is you want to be successful in business, in life, in whatever. By the way, you can apply this to life. People make decisions all the time that are positioning statements or positions that they take, and they end up being unsuccessful. So overall, it has been a very good response, and I'm happy with that result.
And is there going to be a second edition of the book?
So we've contemplated, because so much has happened, especially when people say to me, but John, look, the technology's changed and this has changed and that's changed. And potentially there would be a second edition. There are other books that we're working on that I think are more pressing. What I would point out is that whenever somebody thinks that a new technology or media really, and I don't care if it's TikTok or Instagram or whatever the next thing is, right, because Snapchat's doing whatever it's doing, whatever that next thing is that really it's a message delivery mechanism. And now people are going to say, well, John, what about AI? Maybe AI would have us go back and look at it. However, AI does not give you a position, because a position occurs in the mind of our customers, the mind of the market. And this is where AI will not give you that insight. It will spew out lots of words. And in fact, the interesting aspect of positioning is often it is the fewest words to describe something is the best formula that you possibly can have. So I would look to doing that, but right now we are focused on AI because I believe AI is having a massive effect and change. And so that it's more of a back burner right now.
And what is the one lesson from the book that you feel is the most important for business owners, salespeople, and entrepreneurs?
The most important aspect of it is that once you open your eyes to the importance and significance of where things are positioned and how they're positioned and how your own biases, because we talk a lot about the bias maps in all of our heads, once you become self-aware of those, you can then more rapidly understand whether you're investing time and energy in the right projects or the wrong projects. And how that applies to an entrepreneur is that you're going after a market. You have to ask yourself, where are all my competitors? There are no virgin green fields. You may think there are, but there really are not many green fields. There are little holes, there are little pockets, there are little things. And the mistake that I think people make is they don't look for an understanding of the market. And that is where you start finding your spot and finding your position. So the number one thing is to go out there, and this material is available easier than ever before. When I first started getting serious about positioning, building diagrams, analyzing markets, trying to figure out what was going on, what I did is much harder to gather the information. It took a significant amount of time. Don't cheat that exercise now. If this is a marketplace that you're going to be in, whether you're selling in that market or you're marketing in that market or you're buying a business or you're going to be an entrepreneur, always make sure that you do that positioning work and figure out because if you do that one thing, what will happen is that you will beat the odds. You will go beyond that, and you will find out that you're not one of the so many that fail, but you'll be the few that succeed. Any given market, there are going to be more people who will fail than otherwise. And a perfect example of that is I was flying on a plane. I had been bumped to first class when first class still kind of meant something. I was sitting next to a guy, and he was the president and publisher and founder of the third largest cigar magazine in the United States. I know, I'm talking about magazines. Wow, look out, that's ancient history. And he said, well, what do you think? And I said, well, tell me how many magazines are there that cater to the cigar trend that was really blossoming and going, and one could ironically say burning. And he said, well, there's five of them. And I said, well, if you're number 3, you're on the chopping block. Sure enough, within just a short period of time, the 4th and 5th ones dropped out. They ran out of stuff to talk about. Nobody was interested in buying 5 cigar magazines. And I don't know whatever happened to him other than the fact that his title disappeared. And my guess is that maybe there's the 2 survived, but that's a classic case of positioning failure and making a mistake. He needed to figure out how to do, I don't know, cigars for whatever, left-handed, whatever, he had to find that niche. He didn't, and he went away. So the most important lesson is that you need to find a place, understand the biases of the market, and find a means of communicating what that difference is, because you want to be unique in a world of also rans. And for myself, John Paul Mendoza, Dr. Speed Selling, and the ever lovely Sandra, this has been Raging Verbalist number 220. Have a great week, and we'll see you on the next Raging Verbalist.